You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
Hello and welcome into this week's episode of KCSNU Kickoff, your home for college football here on KCSNU. I am joined as always by Matt Lane. Matty, how are you doing this week?
Listen, I'm ready for a fun Saturday. This isn't the best slate of games you're going to get. Next week's shaping up to be a little bit better. But really, when I went through these, I found a lot of fun prospect matchups. And that's kind of, we're in the bye week right now for the Chiefs. This is where I usually start to gear down and really get into some draft stuff. It's a little earlier this year. We're about a month earlier than the Chiefs normally are. So it's felt a little awkward for it still being October and doing this. But big prospect week for me. And this game, or this slate of games, really aligns well with that. So I'm excited to talk about it. And hopefully, everybody has fun Halloween this year too.
Absolutely. I think we're in the midst of a 27 straight days of football stretch. Starting, I believe that was yesterday. We're recording this on Friday. On Thursday, with the Bucks and Ravens game, that started a 27 straight day stretch until I think the day after Thanksgiving or something like that. That football is going to be going on.
Should be the Monday after Thanksgiving, right? Because I'm pretty sure the backyard brawl is usually, or not the backyard brawl, but there's usually Friday games in college after Thanksgiving, I think. So it might not.
Friday,
it might be Monday. It might be Monday after Thanksgiving where you have that streak finally break.
That's true. I forgot about that. Mizzou plays on Black Friday. I should have known that. But yeah,
I can't be taking shots already. What am I doing?
So, Maddie, let's get into it. I'm going to start with my one big thing, talking about our picks from last week. I went 5-2. I put that on the wrong pot. I went 5-2. You went 3-4. I'm up to 28, 15-2. Maddie, you're at 17, 20-2, getting closer to 500 every week.
I don't think so. Actually, I'm pretty sure I'm not getting close. Oh no, you said I did good last week somehow, right? Or no? I wasn't paying attention. I was reading something.
No, you went 3-4. I accidentally flipped those.
Oh, okay. I went and looked at our sheet and I was like, oh, wait, no. I am slowly getting further away from 500 and I couldn't be more sad about it. I have never been more thankful to live in a state that does not allow legal sports betting because I am being protected from myself. Bible Belt saving me.
Saving you indeed. 28, 15-2 for me. Not bad, not too shabby. Maddie, we have a lot of the same picks too. Is kind of the things, but then the ones we differ on, they always go my way. It just seems like that always happens.
Yeah, we have mostly the same picks, and every week one or two will be different, and I am always on the losing end of those one or two.
All right, Maddie, let's get into your one big thing from this past week. What do you got?
This one isn't just a week thing. I just think it's time for us to check back in on, kind of the Heisman race and just see where it's at. I think it's right now narrowed down to kind of a two-man race. CJ Stroud, quarterback at Ohio State, Hendon Hooker, quarterback at Tennessee. Like, I think if you could bet on one of those two versus the field, I don't know what the odds would be set at right now, but I would definitely take one of those two versus the field if that was, some kind of mythical prop that you could find. Bryce Young is lurking because Alabama looked significantly worse without him. The problem is they probably have to win out and he has to have monster games. I don't know if he'll ever put up the same stats as Hooker or Stroud will, given the difference as an offense the rest of the way. So barring a collapse from those two, when getting two losses, I think it's a Hendon Hooker, CJ Stroud race for the Heisman. I couldn't be happier for Hendon Hooker. I just couldn't be happier. I think he deserves it. A little under the radar. Everybody got super excited about Kenny Pickett last year as an older quarterback prospect. Hendon Hooker's a lot better. Quarterback class is better, so maybe he doesn't go first round. But, I think people are going to sleep on Hendon Hooker because of the age in that offense. And just, don't. He's a good football player right now.
I'm a very big fan of Hendon Hooker and what they got going on at Tennessee right now. Former Missouri offensive coordinator Josh Heupel leading the charge there for the Volunteers. Looking at the odds at DraftKings Sportsbook, CJ Stroud plus 100, Hendon Hooker plus 200. Caleb Williams is the third one, but he's at plus 1,400. So DraftKings Sportsbook agrees with you, Maddie, that it is a two-horse race with Blake Corum at also plus 1,400, Bryce Young at plus 2,200. And then Stetson Bennett
Ooh,
for some
where's Bo
reason.
Nix? Is Bo Nix creeping up there now? There's
Bo
been
Nix,
some random Bo Nix
yeah,
hype after a big game last week versus UCLA.
yeah, weird Bo Nix type. Bo Nix is a very, I think Bo Nix deserves to be in the Pac-12. I'll just say that. I think that he
Yeah,
deserves to be out there in the
it's a good
Pac-12. He's a
place
good
for him.
Pac-12 quarterback. He's plus 3,000 with Stetson Bennett. So
Okay.
he's tied with the same odds as old Steady B the fourth is what they have him listed as.
I was hoping that you were going to say they had him listed as that nickname. As
Oh no, they have him under Stetson Bennett 4.
no, Steady
Which
B is what it is from now on. If
Steady B the 4.
if we ever talk about Georgia on this show, because I don't know if we have yet, we are going to refer to him only as Steady B.
Well, good news. We will talk about him today. But before we get into the national slate, let's talk about the local games. Kansas on a bye week. No talking about the Hawks. Hawks, listen, the bye week coming at the right time for the Hawks. They're on a 3-game skid. They need one more game. They need to find that one win to get bowl eligible.
Somebody
And
needs to calm down on their helmets. They need to get the big Jayhawk out of there.
just go with the regular Jayhawk.
Just a big Jayhawk out of, and never two-tone blue on my TV screen again. Please, never two-tone blue on my screen again. I beg of you.
They have had some interesting uniform combinations. But yes, Kansas on a bye week, so that means we're only talking 2 local teams. Let's start with the Missouri Tigers traveling to Columbia, South Carolina to take on the South Carolina Gamecocks. You got a tough matchup with Shane Beamer and his bunch. Listen, every matchup for the Missouri Tigers is a tough matchup at this point, but they have an opportunity to take down the number 25 ranked Gamecocks. That will be on the SEC network at 3 p.m. local time. Maddie, what are your first thoughts on this matchup?
You know, it's a wild time here for Missouri. They might be going into this game with the first time they've had a QB advantage all year with Spencer Rattler on the other side of the field.
Oh.
Spencer Rattler has been terrible this year. He has been absolutely awful. He has taken an already average, Beamer offense and made it almost unwatchable, absolutely garbage. So, this could be a very ugly game with 2 defenses probably playing a little bit better than their offensive counterparts. Both teams have some weapons on offense, some guys that can win. We're familiar with Burden and Lovett, but then you go over and look at South Carolina, Jalen Brooks, Josh Vann, I think, is coming back. He was one of their leading receivers last year. He's back from an injury now. They got guys. Neither team has a quarterback or an offensive scheme that is going to maximize or produce a lot of points. So this could just be a nice, ugly defensive brawl down in old Columbia, South Carolina.
It's going to be a low-scoring affair for sure. Let me pull up the line here for these. The over/under set at 46, which is number one, not a whole lot of points, but still might take the under on that one. Interesting enough, South Carolina is favored by 3.5 points. I think that's probably about right. Listen, as a Missouri fan, this has the same vibe as Auburn, has the same vibes as Florida. I think Florida maybe even had less of vibes, but this is another game that Missouri's going to probably play close, but probably lose. Missouri doesn't play good on the road. They've had their struggles on the offensive line. A lot of the stuff happens up front. You need a lot of the good things to happen up front if you want to be a successful offense. They haven't really had the protection that they needed to. You saw them against Vanderbilt utilize the screen game a little bit more with Luther Burden, and magically Luther Burden made some guys miss, scored a couple touchdowns. I think they're not both on screens. I think one was a rushing touchdown. But I still think getting Luther Burden involved, I don't know where the Wildcat has gone. They did that the first week and haven't done it since. And I thought that was a really good idea to get Luther Burden involved and get him the ball just like immediately, which is what they need to do. But I want to see some of that offensive creativity against South Carolina, because at this point, if you're Missouri, you have nothing to lose. You literally don't have anything to lose. You have to win this game if you want to get a bowl game. If they lose this game, they're not making a bowl game. Unless
Ooh.
they're not. No, they're not going to, unless they turn to a 5-7 bowl qualifier. But even if you look ahead at their schedule, they'd have to beat one of Kentucky. That could be tough.
Not a good team, though. But not a good team.
Not a good team. They're not going to beat Tennessee. They're not. And then they'd have to beat Arkansas, which another one that's like, I think kind of a toss up, but it depends on how like the recent form and everything like that. If KJ plays, and the same thing with Kentucky. If Will Levis plays, maybe they have a little bit more of an advantage there. But like man, it's looking tough to find some wins for this Missouri Tigers team if they want to make a bowl game. And I think that there was a report on ESPN that said that there might be a more 5-7 bowl qualifiers than before, just because of I think they've expanded the bowl field a little bit. So there might be more 5-7 teams. So that's how Mizzou could find themselves in there. And I've said all along that this team is probably a 5-7 qualifier.
Yeah, and so it's a big game for him. We were talking a lot about, Luther Burden, and then I think Lovett's been really good for Missouri too when
Yeah.
Burden hasn't been going. Not a bad matchup, but like an interesting matchup to watch. South Carolina does have a pretty good secondary, specifically Cam Smith, who will play outside and inside, is probably looking in to be a first round pick or at least top 50 pick at corner. He will travel around a little bit, so I'll be intrigued to just watch how that matchup goes. Right, this is not the prospects to watch. Just wanted to say, like, I don't think that there is going to be this raw athleticism advantage, like a complete mismatch, like there normally is for Burden and Lovett versus some of these other corners they face. Like there's at least one guy on South Carolina secondary that can match their athletic ability. But actual prospects to watch: Zach with 2 C's, Pickens. It's a Zacch. I don't know why, but it's there. 5-star recruit, top 10 recruit in the nation coming out. Goes to South Carolina. Most sacks he's had in a year, 4. Not off to a strong start this week, only 1 sack. Yeah, he's disruptive. Yeah, you can see all the flashes of talent, but he has not really put it all together. He needs to finish strong. He's in his senior year right now. Yes, he could come back for a 5th year if he wanted to, but how often do high 5 stars like that really want to go spend that extra 5th year in school, especially for a South Carolina team that's probably going to lose their quarterback, even if he's not very good? Again, have a lot of turnover. He's probably coming out. He needs to finish strong, so it'll be up to Missouri's offensive line to stop them. I was pretty excited because I think his name is Connor Wood. Is that the tackle's name now? He was playing guard last year. I was excited for this matchup, and then Tucker informed me that, nope, he's got to play tackle now because of an injury. So now I don't have a Missouri guy to watch just across from Pickens, so I'll just watch both tackles, how they hold up, Foster, Wood, and then see what Zach Pickens can do on the interior if he can throw off Missouri's potential passing game or rushing game against the South Carolina Gamecocks.
If he's going to get 4 sacks in a game, this is the game he's going to be able to do it, because Missouri's got themselves a Swiss cheese offensive line.
That's not what Beamer said.
Shane Beamer is a liar. Shane Beamer said that Missouri had a great offensive line, and he was lying through his teeth the whole time, and he knew it. Okay, Maddie, like I mentioned, South Carolina favored by 3.5 points. A generous spread, in my opinion. Let me give you a nugget before we make our pick here. Missouri has failed to cover the spread in 7 of its last 8 road games in October. Another fun fact about the over-under that I was talking about earlier: each of Missouri's last 7 road games against AP-ranked teams have gone under the total points line. Those are courtesy of our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. Mizzou is 4-3 against the spread. South Carolina also 4-3 against the spread. What do you got?
The Gamecocks have won their last, 4 games I'm looking at now? And every single one of them, they would have covered this spread. And 2 of those games, Kentucky was ranked 13th at the time. Now, I don't think Levis played in that game, but still a 13th ranked Kentucky without Will Levis. And then Texas A&M, who, again, quarterback injuries, but it's still Texas A&M. And they would have covered 3 points versus both of those teams. I think it's safe to say both Kentucky and Texas A&M are probably better football teams than Missouri is. Let's ride with the Gamecocks. We're going with the Gamecocks in this one. I don't think the line is quite big enough. Defensive battle, it's hard to expect under, what'd you say it was, 46 points and also a cover for South Carolina. But I do think that they're about probably a touchdown victor in this game, which would cover 3.5.
It's interesting. Usually the home team gets the 3 points. So they're saying that they think that South Carolina is a half point better than Missouri. If you look at it in that regard, if you take the home field advantage out of it, if they played neutral site, that'd be a half point. I don't agree with that. I think that South Carolina is playing with a lot of confidence right now, and that's huge in college football. You can have a lot of skill, you can have a lot of talent, but you got to have confidence as well. They've beat some names, like you mentioned, Maddie. They've beat Kentucky, they've beat A&M, they've beat A&M, we talked about this on the Mizzou show, might be having an equally bad season to Mizzou. Like, their seasons are almost identical. It's just kind of scary to think about. And one of those teams had a lot higher expectations, and it wasn't Missouri. So I'm going to take South Carolina in the 3.5 as well. I just don't feel I don't feel confident. South Carolina has found ways to win games. Missouri has found ways to lose games. And I think that that's kind of the line where I draw. Yeah, Mizzou's played teams close, but they always seem to figure out a way to not finish the job. And South Carolina seems like they can finish the job. So South Carolina 3.5 for both of us, Maddie. And we're taking those points. Let's move on to the next local game that we got. This is a good one. This is a good matchup. This game is going to be happening at 2:30 local time. This is number 9 Oklahoma State traveling to Manhattan, Kansas. It's a Fox kickoff. No World Series game going on Saturday? Friday,
Who
I think.
cares?
Good point. World Series starts on Friday, so I don't think they're gonna have a game. So that's why I saw Fox, and I was like, "That's weird." But anyway, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. This is Kansas State's season on the line.
Oklahoma State's too, right? I think both
Yeah.
teams now have one loss within the conference. If you lose this one, not only do you lose the direct tiebreaker, they have both now lost to TCU, so they're already essentially, back. Like it's a big game for both these teams. Like, right, one of them is probably sitting there at the end of this being like very upset and needing a little bit of a collapse. So this game's huge. It's two teams that I feel like we've talked about a lot. I mean, K-State's a local team, so we're going to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
You need more K-State talk. There's links all around one of these corners. Tucker knows which one it is. That you can go check out full breakdowns of this game and everything you need to know about K-State football. I feel like Oklahoma State, we keep talking about every week. We're going to talk about them again next week because I believe they play Kansas. So the whole Cowboys, they'll be hanging around. It's just, to me, it just strikes me, this game matters. This game matters a lot. And Spencer Sanders, quarterback for Oklahoma State, been injured for what seems like his entire career, but especially this year, he's been listed on the injury report as questionable every week. Right now, we don't know if Adrian Martinez is playing. We don't know if his backup's playing. Like, we don't really know about this game. So a very big game, unsure health of quarterbacks. It's not what you like to see.
Not at all. This line makes it even more interesting, I think. But before we talk about the line and before you talk about your prospects, Maddie, I want to take a look at these Big 12 standings. TCU 4-0 in the conference. They're top. They play West Virginia this week. I thought about a game we were going to talk about. We're not going to talk about them because we talk already too much about the old Horned Frogs. But Oklahoma State, Kansas State, only two other teams with one loss in conference play. Everyone else has two or more. So when you start to look at this, maybe the winner of this game goes to the Big 12 championship. If they do win out, if everyone wins out, then that would be the case. But this is probably for a spot in Arlington, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree. That's exactly what this game is. That's what you're dialing up for. And it takes me back to the point. Imagine this game being so important because you don't, and your quarterback you're unsure about. And one of the reasons you arguably lost to TCU for both teams was the health of your quarterback and then defensive collapses down the stretch. It's an interesting game. There's a lot on the line. There's a lot of similarities between how both these teams got here. So it should be a fun matchup. Speaking of matchup, look at this. Channeling my inner Kent Swanson here. We are going to go with Oklahoma State's wide receiver room. Now, unfortunately, Bryson Green is my favorite of the bunch. True sophomore, not eligible. But Braden Johnson started off the year kind of hot for them. Now, it wasn't against the best competition, but he started off with a 100-yard game, followed to some 80-yard games. Like, he was looking good to start. I believe he got dinged up, but he should be back now. So Braden Johnson is the kind of the receiver that is draft eligible that I'm watching in this one. If you want to really look, Brennan Presley, also draft eligible, a little bit more of a slot, kind of manufactured touch kind of guy, or just a deep threat. Two wide receivers. We talk a lot about the K-State's corners. I actually think they're a little banged up right now too. So I don't know how the health of them entirely. So let's jump over to the safety spot. Josh Hayes, a safety. I think he'll probably try to come out if he keeps having a strong game. Like I thought he played really well against TCU. He finishes the season strong. He's looking at, a day 3 pick in the draft, a little bit more under the radar. Kobe Savage, another safety, flashes. I think he probably would be better off coming back to school, but just in case he has, gets the right word from the NFL and he might want to come out, just a couple guys to watch playing safety against this Oklahoma State offense that kind of airs it out a little bit.
Oh yeah, they love to let that sucker fly. The spread for this game, as I said, I was very interested by it. 1.5 points in favor of the Wildcats at home. We talked about the uncertainties for injuries for both teams. The 1.5 is very interesting. Maddie, before you make your pick, I've got some nuggets.
Please, nugget me.
Oklahoma State has covered the spread in each of its last 9 October games as an underdog.
Okay.
That's my nugget for you. Also, take the over in this one. Each of Kansas State's last 8 games against top AP ranked teams have gone the over on the points line. That over is set at 56. So go ahead, hit that over. But the over under record at Bill Snyder Family Stadium this year, 1-3, with an average points per game of 44.5. So take that in consideration as well. Maddie, what are your thoughts on the line?
Man, I don't know what to do with this, right? This line tells me that Vegas thinks Adrian Martinez is playing. Like that's
Right.
my only possible take I can get from this line because Spencer Sanders is going to play. It's just a matter of how dinged up is he going to be. This line with favoring K-State without their starting quarterback would be kind of crazy. So I think that means Adrian Martinez is going to play. Oklahoma State's defense, huge step back without Jim Knowles there this year. They are not as good on defense. They are outscoring people, not stopping them. K-State should have the better defense, but after what I saw last week, riding with the Pokes, give me Oklahoma State. Give me the 1.5 points. I would take the money line on this if I was really going to bet it. I think I would just take them to win outright, probably get a little bit better odds. So, yeah, I'll take Oklahoma State here. I think that's the way I'm leaning, but I really, really don't love this game, the line where it is.
That's the absolute best way to play this game, I think. You're getting plus 105 when it comes to the money line. Not getting a ton of money back, right? But if they do win, you still get plus money. If you're betting on the spread for Oklahoma or Kansas State, it's minus 110. So you're getting a little bit more money back, and you're basically picking them to win at that point. It's basically a pick 'em when it comes to Oklahoma State. I'm taking the Pokes. I talking to some people around Oklahoma State, trying to see what's going on there, trying to listen to some rumblings if Spencer's going to play. And to your point, Maddie, he's gonna play. Like
He's gonna play.
He's been hurt like his whole career, but he just still plays, which is just like the Spencer Sanders career.
I don't think it impacts his play. Like he's still never like great or never like. Well, no, he's been terrible, but he's still never great. And the injuries don't make him absolutely terrible. He's still the same guy, no matter how hurt he is. He's just always hurt.
He is always hurt. So, Maddie, you took the Pokes as well, correct?
I did.
Yes.
Big Pokes.
We're doubling up. Same picks for the local games. We're going to the watch schedule now that we've got no local games in the noontime slot, so you can throw this one up noon 11 a.m. This is number 2 Ohio State versus number 13 Penn State at University Park. This is going to be on Fox as well. So if you are a K-State fan, go ahead and turn on Fox a little early. You can watch this game roll right into the game that you want to be watching. Interesting matchup. I think Ohio State's good. What are your thoughts, Maddie?
I also think Ohio State's good. I also think Ohio State has seen some things from defenses that does mess with them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Penn State's that team that will mess with them, though, right? I don't think Penn State has the defense that will give Ohio State trouble, but you have seen CJ Stroud specifically and Ohio State not always look the cleanest when they're getting a little bit of pressure on them. So I think that's just worth noting. As far as the matchup goes, Penn State plays Ohio State relatively close, right? It's one of the games they oddly get up for. They play them close no matter how big the talent disparity is. I think there's some fun matchups here. Olu Fashanu, the left tackle for Penn State, right now, I'd have a hard time not saying he's OT1 pretty easily. So going up against Zach Harrison in that Ohio State defensive line, fun matchup. If he can hold up, Penn State has a chance. They have some playmakers at wide receiver. So they could make it frisky, but I think overall, I don't know. Ohio State should win this game. They should win it comfortably. Just Penn State likes to get frisky, and they can't white out this game. They cannot white out this game, which is a disappointment. This is a prime whiteout game, but they can't do it at noon, apparently. It's not allowed.
Interesting. I guess that makes sense. I wouldn't want to white out at noon. When I think about this matchup, Michigan a couple weeks ago, what is that, 2 weeks ago, absolutely wiped the floor with Penn State. 41-17. Can Ohio State do the same thing with Penn State? Do they need to do the same thing with Penn State to make you feel like they're a better team than Michigan? That's just something that I've been thinking about. Michigan seems to, maybe they've got something figured out. But Ohio State ranked number 2, Michigan ranked number 4. I think Tennessee's number 3. And I think Georgia is number 1, yes, and number 2 would be Alabama. So all that off of the dome, impressive by me. When you're talking about these AP ranks, I'm curious, Maddie, your thoughts on that. Do they need to blow out Penn State to make you feel like they can win the? What are they in the Big Ten East?
No, they don't have to blow them out, because I don't think there's a huge correlation between Penn State and Michigan. I don't
Sure.
think like this matchup is any kind of indication of how Michigan and Ohio State will match up necessarily. So that part doesn't worry me as much. I don't think Ohio State needs to beat Penn State by more than Michigan. Like I said, they play frisky. I will say though, if Penn State's able to get a little bit of pressure, if their PJ Mustafa at defensive tackle and Adisa Isaac at defensive end are beating up on DeJuan Jones and Paris, who's I'm drawing a blank on his last name, playing left tackle for them right now, Paris Johnson. If they can beat up those tackles, they can get some pressure on CJ Stroud, then I'll feel really good about Michigan doing so in the game. So I think it's more about how Ohio State looks, not how much they beat them by, because it isn't Penn State after all. Penn State will get that game will be a
Right.
little frisky for them, especially if Ohio State doesn't start hot.
An interesting nugget I want to share. I've got more nuggets to share. Don't worry.
All the
Before you talk about your prospects matchups to watch, so you haven't already talked. You talked about a lot of players, so I just want to make sure you haven't gotten
Not
to
the
your official
prospect to watch yet. I got more.
Okay.
This game has a lot of players in it. So
I know they
yet.
do. I just wanted to make sure that that I wasn't jumping the gun on there. Ohio State. Did you know, Maddie? Ohio State minus 14.5 is 4-0-1 against the spread in its last 5 games as a double-digit favorite. That's from DraftKings Sportsbook. Let's talk about those prospects to watch before we get into the picks and the line.
So I think everybody, has probably heard Ohio State pretty good developing wide receivers, right? They got 2 first-round picks last year. Everyone said the best one of the bunch was Jackson Smith and Jigba. Well, now all of a sudden this year, the best receiver isn't even him. It's Marvin Harrison Jr. Those people are right. And then Emeka Ekuba's there. They have so many receivers, but the guy we're going to watch, Julian Fleming, number 4. He's kind of been their vertical guy this year. Smooth accelerator. He can get deep. He's kind of playing the Chris Olave role. If you like, he's not as good as Olave, but he's playing that general role for the team this year while everybody else does some other stuff. So Julian Fleming, number 4, he does produce big plays for this Ohio State offense. I think this is a game where they might need it because on the other side, Joey Porter Jr. Yeah, that's right. Joey Porter's kid is at Penn State. He's playing corner, 6'2", 200 pounds long, super athletic. I think he's allowed 11 catches for about 100 yards on 24 targets this year. Like he's been really, really good. And some of those catches were in the opener versus Purdue where Charlie Jones was just going crazy. So he's been really good this year. He's one of the best corners in the nation. He'll be on Marvin Harrison Jr. He'll be on Jackson Smith and Jigba, but he'll also go up against Fleming. I think that's a matchup to watch. If Fleming gets loose, catches, another big touchdown, big monster dynamic play, that'll really help Ohio State get rolling. If Joey Porter can shut some of these guys down or even slow them down, do wonders for his stock, but also letting Penn State try to make the upset.
Ohio State favored by 14.5 points. Ohio State this year 4-2-1 against the spread. Penn State 4-3. Each of Ohio State's last 5 games have gone over the total points line. That's at 60.5. And Penn State has covered the spread in 8 of its last 9 games against teams from Ohio. So when you crunch those 2 numbers, I've given you 2 nuggets that kind of contradict themselves, Maddie. What are your thoughts on the spread?
Don't trust James Franklin on game day. So you don't trust him on game day. He's not a great game day coach. And now here's the thing. You can be a bad game day coach and still cover 14.5 points. That's 2 touchdowns. Like you can completely fumble the bag during the game and still cover 2 touchdowns. That said, I'm going to lay the points. That 14.5 scares me. It does scare me a little bit, but I'm going to lay the points. I'll take Ohio State. I think they will be trying to make a statement out of it. They blew out Iowa, but the offense had like 4 or 5 scores off of short fields, like off of like 20, 30-yard drives. I think they'll be kind of wanting to come out, put their foot on the throat of the rest of the Big Ten. Give me Ohio State laying the points, but I don't feel good about it.
Big numbers scare me. You know this if you watch the program. 14.5. That's 2 touchdowns and a field goal that you need. That's a 3-possession game. So I'm going to just side on the side of Penn State just because of the numbers big. Do I think that Ohio State wins and wins comfortably? Yeah. Would I be surprised if Ohio State won by 21 points? Not really. But I just think at home, being 14.5 point dogs. I think there's a lot
Hard.
riding for Penn State right there. So I'm gonna go with the Penn State, the 14.5. Maddie and I differ in that.
Well, chalk
My
it up
pick
as a
right
win for
there.
you then. Just chalk it up already.
Let's move on to the SEC, where we got Florida taking on number 1 Georgia. Um, I don't have a lot to share about this game. I don't think this game should be close, particularly. I know it's a rivalry game. Georgia, I think this is an opportunity for Georgia to kind of flex their muscle. This is at 2:30. This is the CBS, the SEC prime time in air quotes game that they have on CBS. But Georgia should flex their muscle in this game to say, hey, yeah, we are number 1.
Tucker coming out and just swinging on me for putting this game on the rundown, saying this game is trash. Sheesh. You know, I don't entirely disagree with him. I do think Florida under Billy Napier and some of the talent that they have the ingredients to make this game kind of ugly, though, right? Georgia looks like they're putting a little bit together after the Missouri game. Like the Auburn game was a little slow, but then they kind of picked it up. They didn't look great, but they definitely handled them. They look good against Vanderbilt again. They go into a bye. They're coming out of a bye playing a far inferior Florida team. But I think Billy Napier, the way he coaches, the way he's going to run this team, he gives Florida a chance to make this game kind of ugly. And well, spoiler, I think Georgia's going to win. I don't think it'll be super close. I don't know if this game will be a blowout from Jump Street like some of the other games have been. Florida has some athletes. Anthony Richardson can do some stuff. He can out athlete even Georgia guys because he's that level of athlete. I think there's a chance for them to make it kind of fun for at least a half. Then you got to mix in both teams coming off a bye, huge rivalry, SEC prime time. Like this is where they want their biggest game to be. They get it. I'm hoping it can be fun for 2.5 quarters before you kind of start to flip off to other games.
And it could. And the way that especially Georgia's played this year of like, I don't want to say playing down to their competition, but the against Missouri, they definitely did. I think you're right when you talk about the Auburn game. They're like, all right, they kind of took care of business. Vandy, they took care of business, but they haven't really played a really. I mean, Oregon was probably the toughest team that they've played on their schedule. Off the top of my head, I haven't looked at their schedule, but I think that one's going to be interesting. This is also a neutral site game. Considered
right.
It's at TIAA Bank Field in
neutral.
Jacksonville. Yeah,
Neutral site.
Neutral. In Jacksonville.
Like you have to go past Gainesville to get to it if you're coming from Georgia.
That's true.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. That's funny. Jags out of town. They're in a London town, and getting ready to play the Broncos. So they said, you know what, you can use our field over here to play this game. So prospects to watch, Maddie. Who do you got?
There's a lot because you're talking about Georgia and even Florida. They have a lot. Let's focus on Britton Cox, defensive end. Went to Georgia back in 2019, played a little bit, but couldn't, like Jermaine Johnson, couldn't really get a good grip on the rotation there, right? He wasn't entirely sure where he fit in. He transfers out. He goes to Florida. Took him a couple years. I think towards the end of last year, he started to put together 5-star recruit, a lot of talent. Started to put it together last year. You started seeing moves chain together. You see all a plan. He's getting even better this year. Very much a 5-star body, 5-star athlete in terms of a defensive end. How is he going to look going up against who entered the season as my offensive tackle one, Broderick Jones, the left tackle for Georgia? I love Broderick Jones. I think he plays mean, but I think he has really good, calm, patient feet and pass protection. He will not be pressed by speed. He will just calmly go about his set. Then he'll deliver a hard punch. Like I really like Broderick Jones. I think he's a very solid, steady guy that can give you bonus blocking in the run and pass game. So I'm excited to see this matchup. Britton Cox didn't look great the last time he went up against a really good tackle in Darnell Wright for Tennessee, but that Tennessee offense is a different animal with the spacing and the pace and the RPOs. Georgia's more traditional. I'm excited to see if Cox can really pin his ears back and, give Jones a little bit of trouble there on the edge.
Maybe get after Steady B the fourth.
Steady B the fourth.
Get after him a little bit. Georgia favored by 22.5 points. Big number. Here's a fun nugget, Maddie. The underdog has covered the spread in 11 of Florida's last 12 games. Not just 12 games straight up the underdog has covered. Not them specifically. The dogs are favored against Georgia, essentially, or against Florida. Florida against the spread this year, 3-4. Georgia, 4-3. Big number. This the 3 touchdowns and a field goal is what they'd have to do to cover. That's all. What's your thoughts?
Oh, I don't know. I'm taking Florida. I said spoiler earlier, but then I looked at how big it was.
Yeah, it's big.
This is too big. This is too big for a rivalry game where I also think that Florida is coming out of the bye as well. We're just 2 years removed from Florida coming away on top, right? Florida just beat Georgia, I think 2 years ago. Now Georgia's kind of been beaten on them since then, but Florida's a talented team. There's talent there. I think Napier can make the game ugly. If it's an ugly game, I will definitely take the team that is getting 3 touchdowns in essentially a home game being out in Jacksonville.
Florida won 44-28 in 2020 against them. Florida was 3-point dogs in that game.
Kyle Trask. That would be Kyle Trask action right there. So
that was the lightning in the bottle year that Florida had with Kyle Trask. Is what I like to describe that year as for Florida. Since then 34-7 that have covered. That would have covered. So interesting.
I think this Florida team scores more than 7 though. And will Georgia score more than 34 against this Florida defense this year in Billy Napier? That's what I don't know. So
right. I don't think Georgia's been as explosive as they have in years past. Hard to without, George Pickens. That dude's kind of really good. But anyway, I'm going to take Florida in the points. As I mentioned, I even started the show by saying, like, hey, this one's not going to be close. 22.5 is a lot of points. That is a lot of points. And if you are going to give me 22.5 points at essentially a home field, I'll take it every day. All right, let's get into the primetime slate that we have here. We're going to the ACC. We're hitting all the conferences.
This is a wild primetime. This is selection by myself.
Listen, we had a conversation about what our primetime game was going to be. We went back and forth on maybe 2 or 3 other games, but we settled on maybe we should probably talk about this game. It's Pittsburgh at North Carolina at Chapel Hill.
Even say it without laughing.
Nope. On the ACC network. Hopefully you have that channel where you can watch the fraud Pitt Panthers against the truth of the North Carolina Tar Heels and Luke May's brother. What's his name? Drake May?
Drake May.
The quarterback? Yep. There you go.
May. Really good. Really good.
He's good. I do like him.
All right. So why this game was picked? I think it has the makings to be a lot of fun. I don't think North Carolina can stop Pittsburgh's running game, and I don't think anybody can really stop Drake May and this North Carolina offense. So I think you're going to get a lot of scoring in this game. I think it'll be a fun game to watch, and it's Pat Narduzzi's going to be really upset that he's going to be in another barn burner of an offensive shootout and hating his team for having offense, but they're going to have to keep up with Drake May and this North Carolina Tar Heels offense. If the Tar Heels win this game, they're essentially all but locked to play Clemson in the ACC title game. That's where we're at right now is UNC, and what was supposed to be a little bit of a down year as they retooled is they haven't lost yet in the conference. The way their schedule's breaking up, if they win this game, they're pretty much a lock to go to play Clemson. So, big game for them. Pittsburgh comes to town. I think Pittsburgh's off a bye, so maybe they'll have a little bit in there, but what's Narduzzi going to bring to the offensive table? Right, they're gonna run a halfback dive 38 times and hope they get 2 yards at a time.
Yeah, UNC. I always enjoy taking UNC overs because their defense can't stop a nosebleed and their offense can score a whole hell of a lot. So that's my pick is a UNC over. But yeah, looking at this ACC, the standings, UNC at the top there, 3-0 in the conference. Georgia Tech. I mean, 2-2. That's the second team that you have, and to kind of challenge you for the other side of the conference championship. Pitt is at 1-2 right now. I mean, if they get a win here, they'll be basically in second place, tied with second place with Duke at that point, or in Georgia Tech. So a very interesting matchup. Again, this goes back, Maddie, to the conversation we had pre-show about Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's second in the Coastal. They're 24-point dogs to Florida State. That's weird. We don't have to talk about that game, though. But I want to get your prospects to watch here, Maddie.
Okay, so this is, there's a couple different guys you could probably throw out there in this one, but the big one's going to be Josh Downs. Now, maybe he doesn't make as much sense for the Chiefs after they trade for Kadarius Toney, another 5'10", 190-pound, speedy, athletic receiver. Maybe doesn't make a ton of sense for the team now, but that's what he is. And Josh Downs might be one of the most electric players going in football right now. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, in every game Downs has played in this year, he has either had 100 yards or a touchdown. He missed a couple games. So I'm going to double check real quick here. But 78 yards, 2 touchdowns, 32 yards, 2 touchdowns, 120 yards, 69 yards, touchdown, 126 yards. So yeah, every game, 100 yards or a touchdown for Josh Downs. Really, really good football player. On the other side, Pitt Panthers, they're going to play their quarters coverage. They're going to press guys at the line of scrimmage. They're going to threaten them to beat them over the top. Downs, I think, can do that. AJ Woods, Marlon Devonshire, 2 corners that are playing for Pittsburgh, have been playing very good. They did very good versus Tennessee earlier this year. They gave up plays, but they made plays. Fun matchup of a dynamic offensive weapon versus a very physical Pittsburgh Panthers, fraudulent Pittsburgh Panthers defense. So there's what you got to keep your eyes on.
Yeah, frauds of Pitt. Interesting line that they got here. UNC favored by 3 points at home. Pitt 2-5 against the spread. UNC 3-1 against the spread. Pitt has covered the spread in 7 of its last 8 games against teams from North Carolina. I'm taking the heels. I'm going UNC minus the 3. I think the offense, the high potency, is too much for the fraud Pitt Panthers to handle.
I'm with you. I'm riding on that too. It's very clear, and maybe this is why I bet so terribly. I bet with the better quarterback most of the time, and I think in most of the time for college football, that maybe gets you the win. Maybe it doesn't cover spreads as much, but give me the better quarterback. Probably the better coach the way it's playing right now. So yeah, give me UNC. I think in this shootout, I trust the better quarterback to score the final points more than I trust a running back.
Interesting. I was just looking at the matchup history. Pitt has won the last 2, but Pitt has also been favored in the last 2, and they also had Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, last year was a good one for them. The year before, that was probably the year before. I think UNC was trending up, but they weren't supposed to be great. Sam Howell was kind of coming along really strong. That was a little bit of a letdown to lose to that Pitt team 2 years ago. Last year, it was a little bit more, I think, kind of 50-50. UNC was just down in general. But that one 2 years ago, that one probably stings a little bit. Riding with the better quarterback.
Interesting. I'm looking at this now.
Uh-oh.
Pitt has been
the flip?
No. I'm not going to flip. Pitt's been the home team for their last 2 matchups. 2019, they were the home team. 2021, they were the home team. So this is the first time since 2019 that this matchup's been in North Carolina. Maybe have a little bit more juice for the old heels. I like plans.
I would shoot over there tomorrow.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. All right, let's get into the wild card games. I'll start with mine. No shocker that I am going to talk about this team. Notre Dame travels to the Carrier. I don't think they call it the Carrier Dome anymore. But they travel to Syracuse, New York.
A weird one now. Yeah.
It is
Go ahead,
a weird name. It's okay. To take on the Syracuse Fighting Orange. And I love this team. This is an 11 a.m. kickoff. I will be watching this game. Obviously, got to be watching Sean Tucker, see if he's going to be pleased with his performance. Syracuse should have beat Clemson last week. I'll say it. They should have beat Clemson.
Hot take.
They should have beat them. They let that win slip through their fingers. Number 16, Syracuse. Get them in a New Year's Six bowl. I like Syracuse. Syracuse 2.5 point favorites on a Notre Dame team that has struggled, to say the least, this year. A Notre Dame team that lost to Stanford at home. Not a great look for the Fighting Irish. Maddie, who are you watching prospect-wise in this game? I think I took you to watch.
I do want to slightly push back. I think that game was closer to Clemson blowing out Syracuse than Syracuse winning. I think a fumbled exchange on a read option was a 14-point swing. Like literally on that play was a 14-point swing. DJU just kept turning it over and Shipley fumbled. Like I think that was closer to a Clemson blowout. I would have actually loved to see the line of this game if it went the way the two teams played. Had Clemson not fumbled out, just got those 14-point swing right there, and that's essentially they blow out Syracuse if that happens, what would the line be? Because I think it seems awfully low for a one-loss Q's team that barely lost to Clemson versus a Notre Dame team that barely lost to Stanford, right? Like, it doesn't align. I just think that they're baking that in a little bit. Prospects to watch, though. we got to do it. We talked enough about Syracuse without going straight at him. Sean Tucker, running back for Syracuse, definitely their second best player, one of the two. He's a very good football player. And then for Notre Dame, their defense always has some guys. It's hard to pick out ones. I'm going to go with Brandon Joseph, safety, transferred in from Northwestern. A lot of people loved him last year. A little bit more known for his coverage ability and playing against the pass and the run. I think against Syracuse, you don't care to play the pass. You're going to let them throw the ball. You need to shop the run game, right? And so is Joseph going to spend more time in the box? Will he take Sean Tucker and some coverage reps? Because Tucker's been a pretty good receiver for the Orange so far this year. It's like that's kind of the two guys that I kind of got my eyes on. I would say I would love to know if Garrett Williams, the cornerback for Syracuse, is playing or not. Not that Notre Dame is going to light them up through the air, but he was probably their best prospect, and he hasn't played the last couple of weeks. So I don't know if he's playing or not. I think that probably goes a long way in where a line might be settled as well.
Absolutely. The Q's favored by 2.5 points. Notre Dame 3-4 against the spread this year. Syracuse 6-1 against the spread. Go ahead and give me the Q's, but I do have a little bit of nuggets that I want to. I listen. I already went ahead and picked with my heart. I picked with my heart instead of picking with my head right here because I do love Syracuse for some reason. But guess what? The stats back it up. Syracuse has covered the spread in each of its last 8 games in October. Here's another good one. 7 to Syracuse, 8 games at. Okay, here's the name of the dome. JMA Wireless Dome have gone under the total points line at 47.5. Fun one here too. 46.6 is their average points per game. Over under record this year at the JMA Wireless Dome is 1-4. 47.5 is what the over under is set at. So hammer the Q's. That's all I've got to say. The Q's win. Q's win.
Q's win. I'm glad I don't have to pick this one because I would battle you. I think this is a trap game for the Q's. So I would battle you if I was picking. I'm not picking this game. Just, I would consider Notre Dame here because I think coming off that Clemson loss, Syracuse emotions might be a little out of control.
Interesting.
My wild card game. We're getting sick here. We got problems. Not only are we watching Florida, Georgia, not only are we watching Pitt, UNC, we also have up number 17, Illinois, traveling to Lincoln, Nebraska to take on the Nebraska Cornhuskers. This is my game of the day. This is the one game, if I get to watch it, I am going to watch it. And you might be saying, Matt, why is that? I'm not here to give you guys anything about any breakdown of these two teams. Illinois is a better team. Nebraska stinks. But two guys fighting for the earliest my guys in the NFL draft are playing in this game, and they are going to be going directly against one another. Trey Palmer, wide receiver for Nebraska, 300 yards of offense against Purdue the other week, 4 touchdowns. He was leading the nation Power 5 in receiving yards until they went into their bye week, and then Charlie Jones overtook him. One of the best receivers in the nation, 5-star recruit, transferred to Nebraska from LSU. He's their offense, right? Him and Casey Thompson throwing him the ball. That's kind of their offense. I love him as a vertical receiver. He's so good on the vertical plane. On the other side, Devin Witherspoon, a cornerback at Illinois. You might remember him from the Indiana game to start the year. Absolutely unloading and decleating a poor running back and sending him to the nether realm. That is what happened. And I love how he plays. He's a good athlete. He was a state champion high jumper in Florida and high school. Didn't play football until his junior year, has gone to Illinois, has started every year since a sophomore. I love his athleticism, the length. I love how physical he is. If I were to make a Steve Spagnuolo cornerback into a perfect package, it's this guy, the way he blitzes, the way he hits and wants to come downhill, but he has the length and I think the athleticism to play on the outside. This matchup is something that I'm going to watch, whether it's tomorrow, whether during the game, whether it's on a replay. Like these two guys, I want to see play against each other. Arguably the two top my guys going into the draft season this year.
High praise in this matchup here.
It is.
Illinois favored by 7.5 in this game. Illinois is 5-2 against the spread. Nebraska 2-5 against the spread. Very interesting line here, I think.
Illinois is a better team. It's not even close. And Illinois is going to win the game. The problem is Illinois' offense is a bit of a slog, right? Like they don't score a lot of points. Nebraska, for all their faults, what they can do is score points, and they can do it they can do it in bunches. They can have dynamic plays. I just talked about how good Trey Palmer is, taking the top off and how much of a dynamic player he is. So Nebraska hits 2-3 big plays in this game. I don't know if Illinois can actively score enough points to cover it. So I'm so tempted to take Nebraska to cover over a touchdown. But at the end of the day, like, am I really going to trust the Cornhuskers? Like, really? Like, when I go to bed after this and I lose because I bet on the Cornhuskers, like, can I live with myself? And I'm going to ride with the Fighting Illini. They haven't really let me down this year. They've done everything I thought they were going to do every time I have bet with them. So give me Illinois. It's a tight one, but give me Illinois just because I don't think I can trust Nebraska.
I would, if I was picking on this game, hypothetically, I would hypothetically agree with you on that. But if you look at our two matchups, Maddie, both games are on ABC. So if you want to watch our wildcard games, just flip on ABC and you will have our noon game and our 2:30 game at 11 a.m. and 2:30.
Nothing like Notre Dame versus Syracuse and Illinois, Nebraska to really round out your side. Then you got to go hunt down the ACC network to get Pitt UNC, of course. But
to go full sicko.
Yeah, it's fun. Those are fun games, though. They're not the most high-profile games. Not everyone's probably going to be chiming in for those games there, but that's a fun one. You want to have a good Saturday. I think you'll have fun watching those games along with all the others we mentioned.
Absolutely. Well, the picks are in, Maddie. Thank you, as always, for helping me preview these games and giving us some prospects to watch as we are heading up into draft season on the Chiefs bye week. Got to have some players to watch. I did a mock draft for the first time. I sent it to you the other day, and I had big old Broderick on there on our mock draft. So it's a pretty good mock draft.
Fighting for my guy. You always ask me for my final thoughts. I'm just going to give them now. We are 1 week away from Georgia, Tennessee. We're 1 week away from Georgia, Tennessee. They put it in the SEC primetime, that 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central Time game. Best time for a college football game. That's next week. Whew! I'm ready for that one. Just get me to that game. This week's fun, but get me to that game.
Perfect note to end on. Maddie, as always, thank you for joining me. This has been KCSNU Kickoff here on KCSNU. Make sure to like the video. Subscribe to the channel if you want more college content from K-State, Mizzou, KU. We've got it all covered for you right here at KCSNU. So until next week, we'll talk to you later.